What is up, guys? Welcome back to the Kings of CONCACAF podcast. I'm your host, Nate, and today we're going to be talking about is it worth it going to Europe as a U.S. men's national team player that's in the pool or trying to get into the squad, whether it be that first team squad or that squad that plays in the Gold Cup or the squad that'll be playing in December. Is it worth going to Europe to maybe develop your game a little bit more, even though you're not going to be playing in Europe when you would be playing in the MLS? So, as someone who is a semi-Europe snob, I've mentioned a couple times before that I call myself a talent snob, and that is I just want the best players to be on the field. At all times. So if you play in the MLS and you're a top level player and deserve a starting spot, then that's great. Then play. But if you are an MLS player that is not necessarily good and is only playing because of experience or the fact that they are an MLS player that, for whatever reason, if it's the USSF or if it's Greg, if they're prioritizing, those type of guys in the lineups, then I don't think that's right either. So, this is what I'll have to say. There's some guys that have left for Europe because I think that is the right thing to do. I think that if you have the talent and you have the opportunity, go to Europe because it is a fantastic opportunity for you, because in the United States, soccer just isn't necessarily a priority for a lot of different people. For like basically the country as a whole, soccer is not really a priority, and we've never been a soccer country / football country. We've always been basketball, and we've been football, and we've been American football, not European football. American football. Baseball, hockey, whatever. The MLS is not a big deal in the United States. Soccer is definitely growing. The MLS is definitely growing, but we don't have a system in place where we can kind of, promise that there will be growth for a player. Whereas in Europe, there's lots of, how do I say this? Like, there's lots of different teams and that can promise growth, in a sense. So, a Barcelona, La Masia. La Masia is an academy that so many people come out of, and they develop their players so well. They do this and they do that. There's not very many Barcelona players that don't have productive careers. Obviously there are, because they're, for whatever reason they get injured or, they just don't pan out. But there's so many guys in that Barcelona squad that have once played in La Masia. You see, maybe the best team of all time are all guys from La Masia: Messi, Iniesta, Xavi, Sergio Busquets, Jordi Alba. I'm sure there's more. I mean, there's I think Victor Valdez was PK. Like, there's some of these guys that just about their whole starting lineup was developed through La Masia, and that's something where you don't necessarily see that in MLS. Obviously, there's teams that have great academies like a Philadelphia Union or an FC Dallas. Trying to think what other LA Galaxy is good academy. So there's academies that are really good, and they develop players well. These players then go on to play in Europe and whatever. But when you're a young player and you've developed already in the MLS, or you've developed somewhere else, and you've now made your way into the MLS and getting some first time team minutes, and you have the potential opportunity to go play in Europe to better yourself and to better development. because these European teams definitely, I think, can promise development more so than an MLS team is. And that is because we don't have the best coaches in the world. And we also don't have the best players in the world. So if you're getting coached by the players in the world in Europe, I mean, by the best coaches in the world in Europe, um, and if you're playing alongside some of the best players in the world, they will make you better, and the coaches will make you play better. But here's what I have to say: I don't necessarily agree with always going to Europe if you're not necessarily going to play. So obviously, we've seen Ricardo Pepi burst onto the scene in the past year, and after his play with us, the past couple months, he's been rumored with every team basically in Europe imaginable. And so I'm someone that thinks that it's important to play in Europe, but I'm not someone that thinks that he should play just because it's in Europe. Because if you go to a team, he was rumored to Ajax, he was rumored to Liverpool, and he's rumored to these like huge clubs, and I think even like Bayern Munich. And I completely disagree with that move. If you were to go there, I could not disagree more honestly, because he's not getting first time minutes. You see these guys that are kind of falling out of first team football, like Bryan Reynolds. Bryan Reynolds went to Roma way too early for him. He should not have gone to Roma because um, when you go to Roma, you have to be an unbelievable player prior to that. So you see guys that come in to these big clubs and get first team immediately, basically, like a Pulisic, like a Reina, like a Dest, um, uh, kind of Weston McKennie's kind of in that. Tyler Adams is kind of in that. But for the most part, if you're a USA player or even a young player, I should say, regardless of the fact if you're a USA player, lots of times if you're a young player, you're not necessarily guaranteed minutes when you first come over. But if you go to a smaller club, then you're going to be guaranteed minutes. So like Weston McKennie, he was young, he is still young, and when he came to Juve, he was starting at minutes because he already had proven himself at Schalke. Um, Pulisic was a different story there. Gio Reyna was a different story. When Dest came to Ajax, to Barcelona, he'd already come up through the academy at Ajax and proven himself there. So, I think you need to maybe either develop for another year in MLS if you're not gonna guarantee playing time in Europe. And I don't know, I'm kind of rambling along here, but another case that I'm thinking about is Reggie Cannon. Reggie Cannon is at Boa Vista. He never plays at Boa Vista, and that's not a big team. It's just a Portuguese team. And now he doesn't play games, and now he's falling out of form and not playing, enough to get consistently called up into the national team. Even though he's consistently played well with the national team, or at least well enough to get a nod, I think. Um, he it just it's whatever. So if you're put into a situation where you're maybe not quite ready, I didn't watch Reggie Cannon enough at FC Dallas to know if he was ready for the move to Europe yet. But I will say, um, if Reggie Cannon were to stay at FC Dallas for another season or two and keep developing, keep getting a better player, and then go to Europe, he could have maybe um because like obviously to kind of backtrack, obviously playing with good coaches helps. Playing with good players helps, but ultimately you need to be playing games. Games really matter, especially as a field player, because um game situations are, how you get better, how you adapt in game like situations. So when you're not playing, then it's kind of an issue. So I'm kind of just gonna wrap things up here because I'm gonna just make this uh, episode a little shorter than the usual because I don't want to keep hammering down this concept. But just to kind of wrap up with things, I will say that for my final wrap up, that it's great if you have the opportunity to go to Europe and you know that you're going to get game minutes. No hesitation, go go to Europe and play in Europe because it is going to be a fantastic opportunity for you to continue to for you to develop. But if you go to Europe just to go to Europe without knowing that you're going to play, then just wait. Because if you go to Europe at 22 rather than 20, it's fine. You can go to Europe at 22 or even 25. Um, as long as it means when you go when you're ready. If you want to be a good player, um, then then go. Then go to Europe. But at the same time, you can't just go for the fact that like it's Europe, if that makes sense. I know I'm contradicting myself in some ways. I'm sure if I were to like listen to this again, I'm sure I'm contradicting myself, but as just a quick recap, go to Europe if you have the chance and you know you can play. But if not, stay in the MLS and develop a little longer until you know you can make that move and then you know you will play. Okay, that is all for today. Thank you so much for listening. I'm your host, Nate of the Kings Podcast, and I will talk to you next time.